live chat. It's been a long time since I've done this. Is that the chat? Maybe I'll see if I can get the chat on my computer. Yes, there we go. Wow, that's weird. Okay, cool. Well, I'm here, ready to take your questions. If anyone comes, I'll give it a few minutes. Chaos Dynamics, hello. Hello to you. Happy New Year to you. Well, yeah, it's been a weird week because I was so fired up to get cracking at the beginning of this week, and then New Year's Eve happened, and we did do some stuff, but we basically got ill. We all got ill. Elsa and me at least got ill, and the twins have been ill, and yeah, so this week ended up being sort of like an extra week off, which maybe we needed. But I thought I would do a live stream just to try it out. And if you have any questions that you want to ask, then fire away. And yeah, let's see how it goes. I hope you all had a great Christmas and a lovely New Year. Lars Wilson, hey, back. How you doing? Chaos Dynamics, Happy New Year to you as well. So yeah, I'm here. If you want to ask me something about this project or about the future plans or anything at all, then yeah, happy to answer questions. I was intending this week to try to get the rest of the smoke alarms in. They're nearly all in, and the burglar alarm stuff is all done, so that's all good. So that is actually surprisingly, that's made a big difference, even though I sleep next door in the house, so I can hear everything that goes on here anyway. Just knowing that there's a fire and a burglar alarm in this place now makes a big difference. Chaos Dynamics, what's your go-to bass, DI and mic? Okay, bass DI, I actually only really use, don't even remember what it's called. There's some really old ones that I have. I've started using, I have some Abbey Road Red 47 preamps, which have a really great DI on them. Mic wise, I really like these mini Josephson ones. I'm going to go and look for them. Hold on. These little ones. What are they called again? C42. These little Josephson C42s, they sound really good on a bass cab. Yeah, not too close. They tend to kind of crap out if they're too close. But yeah, I like those very much. Yeah, that's kind of what I use. What else do I use sometimes? M88 can be pretty good. My favorite way to record double bass is by using my enormous bass cab as a microphone to get all the low end from a double bass. So I kind of wire the speaker cab in reverse, and yeah, you can get incredible low end using another bass cab as a bass mic, if that's what you like, you know, maybe in combination with a normal mic. Getting more questions coming in. Turismo Albatross, hello, greetings to you in Chile. John Henriksen, hello from the northwest coast of Norway. Hello back to you, and Happy New Year. Yeah, bass mics. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I use, really. Depends. Did that help at all? Okay, glad you Glad you're happy with the answer. Yeah, I would really recommend these Josephson C42s. They're good. I got these in New York many years ago. I went on a road trip with my dad and my brothers, and we ended up in New York, and I got these, and yeah, they're just really cool, really great little condensers. Um, yeah. So what else has been happening this week? While I was ill, because I'm a workaholic, I was on my laptop trying to um, uh, finish off this invoice generator, which I've been working on and off for, I guess, about 2 years. It's such a basic thing, but I ended up using ChatGPT to kind of assist me uh, in uh, in writing the code and everything, um, and it worked. It worked amazing. I spent like 4 hours last night, just me and ChatGPT, kind of going through it, me explaining what I wanted to do, and ah man, it's amazing. I think I found my coding partner for the rest of my life. Right, more questions coming in. Hello from LA. Hello, Michael in LA. Esben, hello to you in Denmark. Uh, okay, in February, um, well, there's a couple of things on the cards for February. I'm waiting to hear back, actually, about both of them, exactly when they're going to happen. One of them is an English singer-songwriter who lives in Sweden now. Who I probably I'm not going to say which band he was in, but I know of the band that he was in. My wife saw him play at a festival many years ago, so and she actually bought his record, which is kind of cool. That hopefully he's going to come here and record. So that would be a nice thing, and that would also be with another old friend of mine, kind of co-producing. It should be a pretty lovely, easy, chilled kind of thing. The other session, which might happen in February, is someone from Berlin that I've worked with before, who has just got a grant to make a pretty kind of massive, epic thing with choirs, and sounds like everything he can possibly imagine he wants to put into it. But we're trying to kind of see if it's going to work out budget wise and everything. But yeah, I will let you know for sure when I have solid plans and everything for those sessions. What else? Baptiste, hello, back to you. Uchi, wow, hello Uchi. Happy New Year, man. Yeah. What else? Why was I talking about my invoicing software, my invoicing generator? Yeah. Yeah, using ChatGPT. It's kind of weird that, you hear so much kind of, people seem to be so scared about AI and stuff, and I can totally see their point. It is terrifying, and my experience yesterday, going in deep with it, I mean, it was amazing. I felt like I had the most patient teacher ever. But I could see that, this is sort of like a kind of emotionless like thing which just knows everything. I'm going to stop talking about AI. People are asking more questions about music. In between all the project work you do you make place for making your own music? Well, actually on Monday this week, before New Year's Eve and before I got ill, I did make some music for the first time in a long time, like kind of music on my own, like from scratch, which was for a friend in England who is starting a kind of post-production company, and he needed some music for his show reel or for the show reel for the company, and it seems like it's maybe something that I might be able to be involved in this company, which sounds pretty exciting. And so I thought I would make some music for them for their show reel as my kind of contribution to the thing. And he gave me some reference, and I just spent a day on Monday writing a 2 minute song uh, from scratch, which was cool. I mean, it wasn't really a song, more like a kind of like a vamp. But I had so much fun, and I usually when I'm when I when I make my own music, I I go through kind of periods of intense productivity, and then uh, this has been quite a long break. It's been what, 4 years since my last album, but I can totally feel that there is a new album like bubbling away in me somewhere. So that is something that I really want to do this year, is make a new album of my own. I have 3 albums that I already did, which are for sale. Actually, if you feel like buying a copy, they're for sale on our channel. Those ones I all did in Berlin. The first one I started in London before we moved to Berlin. But yeah, I had such an intense period of productivity in Berlin, and now I've put all of that energy into building this place. Um, I kind of I don't really see like a huge difference personally between building this thing and recording an album in terms of the amount of kind of dedication and passion that I put into it. But yeah, it is. It's easy to forget how magical it is to start with a blank passage of time and just fill it up with stuff that sounds good to you. And by the end of it, you've decorated this 2 or 3 minutes or whatever, and it's a mixture of sounds which have never existed before. And I'd forgotten quite how intoxicating that was. So yes, long answer to your question. I am very much looking forward to very soon making some like proper recordings of my own, which I will share with you, of course, and I will share the production of those recordings as well. Um, yeah, I did try that. I tried it in Berlin. I tried live streaming me writing songs. Actually, that was the last. That was the last kind of like personal writing project that I did. Was it was called Robot Report, and I did maybe 20 episodes or something, and it was just me writing stuff in my studio with multiple cameras, and it was actually quite sort of complicated to put together. But yeah, a couple of those things were okay. It felt a little bit forced, I suppose, which I think is the difficulty with sharing, or certainly with filming yourself writing music. You know, it's often not very glamorous. It's often just sitting around for hours feeling like nothing's happening, you know. But yeah, we'll see. I'm going to do my best to share it with you, or share some of it, the juicy bits at least with you. Okay, we got a load more questions here. What kind of mixing desk am I thinking of getting? Says Jamie Phillips. Well, for some reason, I just dream of getting this API 1608. I think it would look just so kind of sexy in here, but it's like 60 grand. So yeah, I don't have 60 grand anymore. I did have a couple of years ago before I spent it all on this place. But yeah, so I need 60 grand and then I can buy this desk. And I don't want to just take out a loan. I don't know if I would get a loan at this point anyway. But yeah, I think a better idea is that I save up for the desk. So if you want to come and record here, I think we're going to get signed off maybe tomorrow we'll see. We're just waiting now for the council to sign this place off. We've ticked all the boxes, so we're basically almost ready to open our doors. So yeah, if you want to come and record here, then let me know, and we can work our way towards the mixing desk together. But I do have very nice mic preamps, and I have plenty of nice stuff. Uh, it's just, I think, the API. My thinking is that in the end, if people want to come and kind of cold book this place, just going by some photos and not knowing anything about me or anything, but just photos and an equipment list, then I think if you have something like, an API or a Neve or an SSL, something kind of, a bit fancy like that, then I think they'll just go for it. It's a no-brainer. My current setup works very well for me. I get great results, but it requires a little bit of imagination and a little bit of a leap of faith. If someone wanted to, not exactly. I've got really nice stuff, but yeah, you know what I mean. Okay, let's see more questions. What is your go-to instrument when composing? Says John Henriksen. Well, I think it was always uh, between piano and guitar. I'd say in the last few years, I've been way more into the piano. I've just got totally hooked on. It's actually kind of my dream is to get to the point where I can do a kind of like a pretty decent kind of gospel-y sort of, like, if I could get like 10% of Nicky Hopkins' world, I mean, maybe even 10% is just too much to ask. If I can get 1% of Nicky Hopkins in my fingers somehow, then I'd be pretty happy, And because I mean, I'm not I'm not a Christian or anything, but I love that kind of gospel world like so much, and also the kind of New Orleans, James Booker kind of like that sort of world, with a bit of like kind of English pub piano thrown in. Like my granddad used to play that kind of stuff. So yeah, piano is totally my thing these days. But yeah, I'm very guilty, probably like a lot of other songwriters, etc., of just battling with my muscle memory the whole time. Like whenever I sit down to try and write something, especially if it's just cold, like from nowhere, then it's just instantly frustrating that my fingers will just go either on the piano or the guitar. They will just go to somewhere where they already know what to do next, and I'm always trying to break that down somehow. One way I like to do it is by just making a playlist of other people's music, which I can just use to sort of force myself into into a new place, which I often do that kind of thing. But yeah, I think at some point I would really like to make some videos about songwriting, because I've been doing it for a long time, and I have some opinions and some ideas and tricks that I could probably share. Yeah. Anyway, more questions. Let's see. Painting humans. You always seem to make time to help out friends. I've been watching you for months, and at first was concerned that you had been working too hard. Stay healthy and keep on keeping on. That's very kind of you, Mr. Humans. Okay, 000 factor. If I was to book the studio, would you be able to get some good musicians in there as well to work on records? I sure can. Yeah, I have a lot of people in Berlin that would easily get over here. I also know people around here who are pretty good. I myself would play on your stuff happily. Yeah, is the answer. Yes, no problem. The Real Power Bob 5000 says, the API sounds great and is easy to use. That's a great choice. Yes. Yeah, I've only heard good things about it, actually. I know a few people that have those desks. one guy said that the op amps, I think in the first model, like the first release, when it was first released, the op amps tended to kind of go bad pretty quickly. So I think that's something that he said you should do straight away, is change out the op amps for some like the latest version, or I think even some CAPI versions. I don't know. I'll look into that kind of stuff. Yeah, the technical stuff. Yeah, that is the other side of running a studio, which in Berlin and in London was quite easy actually. Lots of people around to help fix stuff, and I mean I've fixed stuff myself in the past many times. Electronics is still, I'm still, yeah, kind of definitely amateur level. I have built guitar amps with help. But my experience last night with ChatGPT, to those of you who are just joining the video now, last night I spent 4 hours with ChatGPT coding an invoice generator, which is a project I've wanted to do for ages, because I hate the kind of faff of trying to write a good looking invoice, sort of copying and pasting and all that stuff. So I've made a very easy to use invoice generator with the help of ChatGPT, which I think last time I used it was maybe a year ago, and it seems like so much more slick now. And actually I was even talking to it at some point. You just talk to the bloody thing. It's terrifying and amazing. But I suddenly thought, I reckon I could probably service some of my amps and synths and organs and stuff. I reckon I could probably use ChatGPT to help do that. I mean, I know enough about amps to not kill myself, or electrocute myself, I should say. And I think if you uploaded the schematic to ChatGPT and then just, troubleshooted it with the help of an entity which understands very, very well how this model of tube behaves, and how much voltage each pin on the tube needs, and blah blah blah. I mean, I think you could get pretty good results that way. That could also be a good YouTube video, couldn't it? Me and ChatGPT trying to service a guitar amp. But yeah, very excitingly, my uncle is going to come and see us this week. Hopefully I can convince him to be on the video, because he's very knowledgeable about guitar amps, and especially about keyboards. He used to have a massive collection of old organs and stuff, and I have quite a few that need a bit of love here. So I might try and do some of that this week with my uncle. Okay, we got a lot more questions here. Jacques du Plessis, High Seas TV, greetings from South Africa. What lights am I using in the back of my shot? Okay, well, prepare to be disappointed, or maybe not disappointed. They're just cheap. They're very cheap. They're actually work lights. I can show you. Hold on. Work lights with some gels. There's a red one and a blue one. Yeah, they're just cheap LED kind of floodlight things for building with. But I have to say they're great. I mean, they give off a lot of light, and yeah, this room is still too dark, but yeah, they look cool, I think, for this, Okay, let's see now. John Henriksen, if you need an old gospel drummer, just call. How old are we talking? Yeah, I'm just joking, but yeah, sure. Like, if you want to come over and jam, then yeah, do it. I don't know how local you are. Chaos Dynamics says, "Did you see the N Trophy console? It's freaking amazing, but freaking expensive. For me, any SSL, API, Neve, or Trident will do for me anytime. I mix on an Allen Heath GL 2400." Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's just the way it is. People still go to a studio. Um, be, partly, I mean, okay, this is a generalization. Partly, people go to a studio because they know, okay, this is it. Like we're spending like a lot of money to do this, so it's gonna happen, and we're gonna get it finished. I'm not gonna sit in my bedroom for 2 years wondering if it's good enough. We're going to go to the studio, and everyone's going to be on their game. um, at the same time, partly they go to a studio because they think, yeah, I mean, it's going to have the very best equipment and the very best microphones and mixing desk and stuff. And obviously, microphones are very important still as part of the signal chain and everything. I'd say mixing desks less important these days. I made a video a few months back talking about this, which got a lot of comments, and it was a very interesting read to go through all of that stuff. Like some people said definitely you don't need a mixing desk anymore. Other people said you definitely do. And when I was kind of researching that a little bit, talking to friends, actually, my friend Uchi, who commented earlier, he said he works with big artists and stuff, and he said that these days, most of the time, the mixing desk just possibly doesn't even get switched on, and it's just for people to take an Instagram photo in front of to say, hey, I'm in the studio, look, I've got a mixing desk behind me, which is pretty cynical, not of him, but I mean, that's just, of the human race. But yeah, who knows? I guess for me, it would just make me feel like I had finished building this big, glorious studio if I had a mixing desk. Anyway, Claude Ragged Rex says, Claude has helped me code up some great stuff too. Is that Claude? I'm not really up on the kind of AI lingo. Is Claude, is that a nickname for ChatGPT? Who's Claude? Ragged Wreck. Tell us, who is Claude? 000 Factor website. Yeah, we have a temporary website. Actually, it's definitely work in progress. I made it 6 months ago or so when none of these spaces were anywhere near the state that they're in now. If you go to ideafarm.se, I will put that in the thing. That is our website, and yeah, you can have a look around. I should have actually linked to that before, but anyway, there you go. Baptiste, got to go and prepare the dinner. Yeah, cool. Cheers, Baptiste. 000 Factor, I do have a good synth collection, slightly leaning more 80s than modern, but yeah, I do have some nice. I have a UDO Super 6 sitting over there, which is totally unbelievable thing, and a Moog Grandmother, and yeah, and then a bunch of old like DX7s and like DW8000s, yeah, all those kind of things. I do have quite a decent synth collection, but yeah, that kind of thing, you can never have enough, I guess. John Henriksen, 68. Yeah, sweet. That sounds like a good gospel age. Ragged Wreck, I have a digital desk and outboard pre's. Can't justify the cost of a desk. Claude is a rival AI, but ex-Chat GPT staff. Okay, good to know. Claude. Beaky Bickford, thank you very much for your kind comment. Yeah, this is great to be chatting with you guys. A nice alternative to me. Usually, what happens is we work our asses off all week, like starting quite early in the morning, and so it depends on what we're doing. But sometimes I kind of don't even start filming until Thursday. if because usually sort of by the middle of the week I'm kind of um, I'm already sort of thinking, okay, what's the video going to be about? And so sometimes I will just frantically film on Thursday and Friday, and then anyway, what usually happens is on Saturday, um, I sit down and I start editing the video. Some weeks it's easy. Some weeks it just sort of does itself, and I can do it in 3 or 4 hours. Other weeks, yeah, other weeks maybe I get a bit more adventurous, and maybe it spills over into Sunday. I mean, and I have 3 kids, and we have to hang out, we have to do stuff. There's lots of other things happening, so it's definitely like a full time ish feeling thing to do these videos. But this is kind of nice, like I was stressing out all day, like shit, I don't have anything. Uh, so yeah, it's good to be able to do this as an alternative. Hopefully, it's as kind of as rewarding as a normal video of us building shit. I don't know. Okay, the side project. Hi, what's your thoughts on tracking all at once or in sequence, drums, then bass? Pros and cons. Okay, that's a great question. I personally absolutely love everyone playing together. That was like from pretty early on in my life. I kind of just realized the magic of that it somehow just it fills in gaps which you don't notice unless you start doing it layer by layer. Does that make any sense? You believe in it, and I think if everyone is believing in it while they are making it, then people that listen to it believe in it as well. I just think when you're layering stuff up, it's I think it's harder. I think it's kind of harder to get a as good a result, or as kind of as potent a result. You can still get like amazing sounding stuff, obviously, like you can get incredible sounding productions that way, but I think it will be a different type of production if you layer it all up. And for me, there's just something about that kind of magic. It's a lame word to use, magic, but I mean it kind of is like magic. There's I it, I've said this to lots of people. There's really like no bigger buzz for me than sitting in a studio that I've built myself, especially with all the patch bays and everything, when there's thousands of solder points all running, cables running through the walls, 20 odd microphones set up, and everyone is playing live, and I've placed all the microphones, and I'm sitting back in the control room and I'm listening to what basically almost sounds like a finished record all happening right now. Like I'm sitting here, all of these solder connections are working, all of these tubes are working, all of these transistors are working, every resistor and capacitor are all working, everything's working. And if you think about how many things have to all be on their game at the same time for that to happen, that's a buzz just in itself, just knowing that this facility is operating at full potential. So that's my absolute kind of preferred dream kind of way to work. Having said that, another way I really love working, which is I guess a bit more of a recent thing for me at least, and I think maybe it's a bit more of a modern thing, is, and this depends on the artist, and it seems to work best when it's kind of a singer-songwriter that I'm working with. That way is to basically start with the demos, get the artist to make really good demos, and when I say really good, I mean like ask them to kind of go for it a bit with their demos, not to try and get any kind of polish or anything, but just to kind of express themselves, like just throw lots of stuff down into a demo without caring about it sounding finished or anything, but just like sort of create a sound world on their own, and then they bring that into the studio, and then I would book a really good drummer to come in, and then we will basically put drums on the demo or strip the demo back to some basic, component, like maybe just, I don't know, like a guitar part or a synth line or something. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. Sorry about that. Well, that was lucky. I was, sometimes my phone takes like 20 minutes to turn back on again after it runs out. Where was I? Yeah. So yeah, that's also, I love working like that. I'm thinking of a few people that I've worked with in particular, but starting with their demo, so you're already in their world, um, and then kind of just supporting that initial move that they made. And I like working like that too, because then I get to play lots of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of a cool way to go. Start with a demo, book a great drummer to like make it sound, add a bit of kind of expensiveness to the thing, and then I play a load of guitars, bass, synths, backing vocals. We produce a proper vocal take together, that sort of thing. I really love working like that too. Okay, yeah. Let's see now. Let's go back a little bit. Tracking. Yeah. Okay, that was that question. Yeah, 000 Factor. Looking forward to working with you too. Uh, John Henriksen. Someday I just have to drive from Ålesund in Norway and see your farm in real life. Please do. We will look after you. Side project. Thank you very much. Ragged Wreck. Did it take you long to get comfortable talking to camera? Yes. Um, I recently looked at the first ever video I did, which was 4 and a bit years ago, about our plans for this place. And oh no, it wasn't. I looked at the first video I did about building the studio in Berlin, and I'm kind of. I don't know if I was less comfortable. I don't know if I. I mean, I'm still not particularly amazingly comfortable talking to camera, but I care less about it now, I suppose. Um, it's actually kind of harder, I think, to do this kind of thing in a way where I'm just sort of talking to no one, trying to sort of like hang out with no physical person in front of me, but knowing that you're all on the chat. This is a different thing to me filming myself while we're building. When we're building, I will. Yeah, I've kind of developed my own way of doing it, which is I'll wait for a kind of suitable moment in the day or in the week where I think, okay, I should do the intro now, and then I'll just do the intro. Sometimes I get it first time, sometimes it takes me like 4 or 5 goes, but I'm kind of writing it off the cuff. Sometimes I will have another go once I've figured out what I want to say. But yeah, I, when I look back and when I'm editing, I realize that the less of a shit I give about it, the better it comes across, which is something else I've learned. I mean, this is relevant to music, very much so, like I'm sure we all know what it's like working with kind of super nervous, uptight musicians. It's very hard to get it to sound, vibey and engaging. That's really difficult. I think generally speaking, there is a good way to there's a good way to give a shit about what you're doing, and there's a bad way to give a shit about what you're doing. And yeah, I or maybe I should say there's a good way of not giving a shit about what you're doing. I think that's more what I mean, and I think I'm getting there with that, with music and with this and with kind of everything that I do. And it took me a long time to get to that point. I used to really, really, I used to be incredibly precious and serious about every piece of art that I did. And I've learned the very, very long way that that doesn't make better art. I think a good way around is to spend the time on the kind of concept, like spend the time on figuring out figuring out what it is that you want to do, or what it is you want to make, or what it is you want to say. But the actual, like, process of making whatever it is, I think, should be as kind of human as possible. Obviously there are exceptions, but I think it should be a kind of interesting human experience, both to make it and to listen to it, or see it, or read it, or whatever. There are exceptions. Have I gone off topic? Can't remember. What was the question about camera? Yeah, about being on camera. Um, yeah, does that answer the question? Let's see. um, okay, less cohesive. Just looked at your website. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, it's going to get better, that website. It will. Um, oh yeah, the other thing I was going to say about being comfortable on camera. One of my jobs that I do is I'm a voiceover artist, mainly for Deutsche Welle in Berlin, where I used to live. I read, I narrate, and I do voiceovers for documentaries, for Deutsche Welle documentaries. That was all a total kind of weird accident how that all came about. I was doing a voiceover session for somebody else in my studio, where they were. It was the first ever production of A Midsummer Night's Dream uh, with all deaf actors and actresses who also happened to be naked for some reason. And they needed a voiceover recording for the non-deaf audience members, and they recorded it at my studio. And they did a German version and an English version, and the uh, the German, they just had one voiceover artist, and the who was German, and they were struggling a little bit with the English version. And so the vocal producer asked me, hearing that I had a native English voice, asked me if I would have a go, and I just went for it. I just thought, yeah, sod it, and I just really went for it. And she loved it very much, and she recommended that I get in touch with Deutsche Welle, which was another kind of serendipitous thing. I had a friend that worked there, and he put me in touch with the people I needed to speak to. And yeah, I mean, this is 5 years ago now, and that also, I don't, sorry, this is a very long-winded kind of tangent to go on, but my work as a voiceover artist, when I first started, I remember my first job, because it was all in COVID. I started during COVID, and I didn't have a producer in front of me. I was just doing it on my own in my studio. And so I had no idea what I was doing. And I just thought, maybe I'll try and do a kind of whispering Bob Harris kind of thing. I was just thinking, like, which character should I be? So I was very kind of, I was just speaking very calmly and very slowly. And I recorded this whole 40-minute thing. And the producer sent it back saying, "What the hell is this? Like, we can't use this. You sound like you're asleep." And so then I kind of, it just took me ages of experimenting and being quite nervous. And when I get nervous, I get a bit of like slimy shit in my throat, which also doesn't sound good. And so it's just taken me a long time to realize all I have to do is read these words without giving a shit at all. Just read them, and it sounds totally natural. It sounds very, like, engaging. It's such a good lesson. Like, I'm so happy every time I do it now, because it's like, okay, this doesn't take very long. It's kind of easy. I just have to be myself and just not give a shit, and the results are great. And I think that's a kind of that's something that that kind of mentality, I think, could help a lot of artists who struggle with writer's block and stage fright and all of those kind of things. Like, don't take it so seriously. It's actually kind of, you know it doesn't matter. It's a privilege to be able to make art in the first place, to be safe and warm and comfortable enough to be able to make art, without fearing for your life, etc. And so just like enjoy it and just see what you can get away with, rather than thinking that you're not good enough or it's not going to be good enough. Just like ham it up, see, like have fun with it. Sorry, rant over. Lots more questions. Let's see. Thanks for the journal, Bill. Yeah, great. You're welcome, Jacques. MJ Jackson, Happy New Year. You get through so much work. Do you have much downtime? I presume you're still doing music and voiceover stuff that we don't see alongside all this other work. That is true. I've been talking about that. Voiceover work I do maybe 4 times a month, like once a week. I do a voiceover session, and I usually do it on a Saturday before I start editing the video. So that's my Saturdays. Usually I will sometimes come out here very early, like 7:30 or something. I find that I speak better without before I eat anything. If I eat stuff, like now I just had lunch at my mum's. My mum lives just down the road now, which is great. Yeah, if I've eaten, then I get this kind of like huskiness in my voice. So yeah, I come out here, do the voiceover. I also do mixing work for people. I've had people come here in my temporary studio, in the one that was in what is going to be Elsa's nutritional therapy consultation room. I had all this shit piled in there, roughly set up, like quite insecure, so I didn't really want to show it on YouTube. Yeah, I've done a fair bit of recording over the last couple of years, but mainly building, and I consider it an absolute luxury to be able to do that. I am incredibly grateful. I know how lucky we are to be able to do that. And that's what I think that's what keeps me working so hard. Just like there's no time to waste. Just get up, go out, and build this thing, because there's no other way it's going to get done. So yeah, I do probably work a bit too much, but so far it's been okay. It's actually better than when I did the studio in Berlin. That was the first time I properly burned out, like actually burned out, which was kind of a pretty scary experience. I couldn't get out of bed for a week. It was just really weird. I just couldn't move, and I just had to lie in bed for a week. Yeah, I learned a lot from that. I also in Berlin, I'm a workaholic. I love working. I love making things. I feel extremely grateful to be in a position where I can generally be creative all the time in my work, in my job, and in my kind of dream project, which I'm building here. It feels like an immense privilege, and I just like I just said, I don't want to squander that opportunity. I don't want to take it for granted. So I just have this thing that just pushes me out of the door every day, like go, 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 like just use today as best as you can. And in Berlin, I ended up in a situation where I was in the studio. The studio did quite well in Berlin. I was quite booked up. And it just got to a point after the twins were born where I was just working ridiculous amounts, and also having like newborn twins around, and just living in the studio. We lived above the studio, so I was living either in the studio or upstairs, and I just kind of burned out in a different way then, which was more like kind of just bladder infections and like major back problems and just anxiety, and like a different kind of burnout, more scary actually than the first one, because it was like properly physically painful. And so I've learned kind of the hard way over the years, like I think if you are kind of a workaholic type, then just try to sort of pace yourself a little bit. you know, and I seem to be kind of rambling a little bit in this. This is what happens normally to start talking. But yeah, that's a very long answer to who was that? That was um, yeah, MJ Jackson. Idan Mazur. I hope that was pronounced properly. Hey, hey, the studio is epic. Thanks for sharing it with us. Your creativity and skills are not none to second. Thanks very much. Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you're inspired by it. Yeah, like I've just been saying, it's an honor and a privilege to be able to do this. And yeah, what can I say? Um, there you go. Sprichst du auch Deutsch? Says Manny. Well, not as good as I should do, considering I lived in Germany for 10 years. But I can kind of get by. I actually like when I'm working with Ferdy. That's kind of one of my favorite things is to make him laugh with my kind of ridiculous inventing new German words. I mean, I actually love German as a language. It's just to me like the most incredible, the most incredible example of how a language and a kind of national sort of attitude are just so intertwined. You know, like it's the same. I've talked about this with a lot of people. You know, since leaving England and seeing England from the outside and living in Germany and getting to know, you know, having like many German friends now and now coming to Sweden as well. It's very interesting to me how much the language and the kind of the national mentality sort of go hand in hand. You know, German is it's an incredibly technical language. It's a language where you say the correct thing the first time. You don't have to explain yourself. You know, I would say I would guess that for a German, it would be considered a failure of communication if you had to repeat yourself or say the thing in a different way to kind of get the point across. Whereas English, I think English people very much enjoy saying things in like 5 or 6 different ways as part of the conversation. I'm actually trying to stop myself doing that right now by saying the same thing again. But yeah, I think that's part of the poetry of English is that, you know, there's lots of different ways to approach getting the message across. Whereas German, there's usually one way, or you know, I mean, I'm sure there's many ways, but I would say that a German seems to be kind of happy with saying something one way, and they've got their point across. And so I enjoy messing around with Ferdy, with me trying to kind of invent new German words which say exactly like what I'm trying to say in one go, like inventing a very long German word which will describe exactly the thing that we're doing. Or yeah, I mean, I love it. I love German, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'll ever be great at it, but I can understand it pretty well. Same with Swedish. I can understand it pretty well, but I can't. I'm not brave enough to try and speak Swedish just yet. Okay, Turismo Albatross, you're doing great, man. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Very kind, thank you. Jamie Phillips, don't overthink shit. Exactly. Don't overthink it. Or are you telling me not to overthink shit? Yeah, maybe both. I don't know. Chaos Dynamics, not giving a shit definitely helps. Boom, yeah. Turismo. Yeah, there's absolutely a lot of dedication in my work. Yes. I don't really know where that comes from, but yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think about it sometimes. I mean, my my parents were both creative people. They broke up when I was 3 years old, so I didn't see that much of my dad growing up. But my dad he's like a science fiction illustrator. He was actually kind of pretty pretty well known back in the 80s and 90s. Did a lot of book jackets, record covers, painting spaceships, and that kind of stuff. And I would go and see him, and I would see him. I mean, he was a workaholic, I would say, back then. I mean, he was doing well, so I guess he, enjoyed earning money and stuff. But I could see that he was just absolutely committed to his craft. And maybe he's even watching this. If you're watching, Dad, then yeah, give us a heads up on the chat. But yeah, I'd say he was a big inspiration for me in terms of yeah, like if you're going to do something, then just go for it as much as you possibly can, as much as you're able to. Um, and obviously now, this is a kind of big sort of, expensive project that we're undertaking. But the very first studio that I built completely for free out of rubbish that I found in skips. They did an article in Sound on Sound about it. I think it's in the August 2003 copy of Sound on Sound. You can see a 5-page article about me building a studio out of rubbish, basically, that I got for free out of bins and skips in London. So yeah, that was like, I guess that was me trying to prove to myself that I can make a studio even though I didn't have any money at the time, and I guess it's just gone from there, really. Yeah, I don't know. What am I talking about? Let's see. Good that you don't take things for granted. True. Sean Waite says, congrats on the building, dude. I'm currently building a studio and know the pains. Much love. May the future grant you health and more success. Likewise to you, Sean. Yeah, I hope it's going well. It does often feel like you're disappearing into insanity building recording studios. They are kind of crazy places, and they demand very particular elements and approaches, and they're very fussy. But they're also more forgiving than you would think. That's maybe something that could be kind of useful, a useful opinion for people. It's very easy. I think building studios in a way is a little bit like kind of, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit like anything creative that's difficult. You kind of you spend a long time worrying about, am I going to fuck it up? Is it going to work? Like the place in Berlin, that was, I was in Berlin. I was I lived I had the ground floor of this building. Above us, above the studio, was an artist who's become a dear friend of mine, who I had no idea how noisy he was going to be. I knew I couldn't afford to both physically or financially soundproof the ceiling of the studio, because it would have made the room too low. It would have cost a fortune. It just would have made the vibe really bad. So I spoke to him a lot beforehand, like, look, we'll just record during office hours. Yeah, like, hope it won't just, I'm not doing like metal or anything. It's going to be all pretty sort of tasteful, chilled kind of stuff. And I spent like 40,000 euro building that studio, which I was earning doing advertising music at the time. So that's why I burned out, because I was working 3 days a week doing ad music and building 4 days a week for 6 months. Anyway, the whole thing was very stressful because I had no idea if it would work at all. I was building this whole thing. There was a mechanic outside, quite noisy, like, with cars catching on fire and stuff. And like, I was in the middle of a city surrounded by people and apartments, and I had no idea if I could get away with this. And I just did the best that I could, and it worked out for 8 years. And yeah, it was, the whole time it felt like, okay, I'm treading a bit of a tightrope, but I got it working, and it's working, and it's all cool. And there's some compromises we have to make. Like the heating was noisy, so I'd have to turn off the heater sometimes, like the central heating, because it made a kind of bubbling sound. you always find a way. And I think when you're building studios, just don't get too stressed out about it. Like, just enjoy it. None of this will be here in 500 years time, probably in 100 years time. None of this will be here. Who knows? We're not building permanent structures. We're just building a space that we can use for a while, and so it should be kind of fun. It shouldn't be like a nightmare. Often it is a nightmare. I'm going to just touch a few wooden things here because I do still sometimes have visions of the roof collapsing or something in here, even though I know it won't. But yeah, sorry, long answers to these questions. Let's see now. Let's see now. Let's see now. Let's see now. Damon, hey man, love you. Happy New Year. Sean, don't forget, please like, share, and subscribe if you have not already. Oh yeah, and smash that bell thing too, would ya? Yeah, exactly. He said it better than me. Don't forget, please like and subscribe. Yeah. Let's see now. John Henriksen, did I see a Ludwig drum set in the studio? Yes, it's actually from 1964, I think. It's a super classic, white marine pearl. Very sweet. It actually, when I bought it, it came with the original stands, the original throne, like the seat, and even the original cowbell, which is like one of my prizest possessions. I have a few nice drum sets actually. I have that, and I have my absolute baby, which is a 1958 Slingerland. Is it a Buddy? No, is it Gene Krupa? Fuck, I can't remember which model it is, but it is in Capri Pearl. And any Slingerland aficionados, I'm going to go and get a tom. Hang on, wait there. It's just so beautiful. Yeah. So this is 1958 Capri Pearl with real mother of pearl flakes in it and these little gold glitter strands. And yeah, it's just a total thing of beauty. I have the whole three-piece drum set. Yeah, that's a real beauty. I also have a really nice 60s pearl drum set, and I have a 60s Trixon drum. So I have 4 drum sets. I would like to get something a little more modern at some point, one day. But yeah, the Trixon kick has got quite a nice sort of modern thump to it. But yeah, I love drums. Okay. Let's see. Ragged Wreck. He has all of his Sound on Sound copies. Yeah, check it out. I think it's August 2003. I think. Yeah. Long time ago. 21 years ago. 21 years ago. Do I have a mixing reference playlist? Says the side project. Yeah, that just depends on the project. It's something that I love to do. Actually, this week coming up, I'm going to be mixing an artist from Berlin. He's Irish, actually. This is the 3rd album we've done together. We've kind of recorded it sort of under the radar a little bit over the last few months. And this week we're going to do some mixing. We're going to try and kind of finish it off. He's taken it away to do some stuff himself for a while, and now we're going to just try and sort of put it all together. It was done, a lot of it live in the studio, like I talked about earlier, in that way. But just today, I've been listening to a playlist. My favorite podcast right now is called Ghost Stories for the End of the World. I would really recommend checking it out. It's a bit full on, but it's just fascinating. And he has made a great playlist on Spotify. I don't use Spotify. I don't believe in Spotify. I think Daniel Ek is a piece of shit. So I use Tidal, but I've transferred some of the Ghost Stories for the End of the World playlist onto Tidal. And I was listening through it, and one of the songs on there, I thought, wow, this would be a great drum reference for one of his name's A.S. Fanning, the guy who's coming this week to record or to mix. I'm going to put his name in the chat, so check him out because he's an incredible artist. But yeah, one of the songs, it was like, yes, this kind of drum sound. It was very muffled, very like almost like didn't sound like drums anymore. Just this kind of like underwater drums. I thought, yeah, that would be really cool for one of those songs. So I called him up and said, hey, check out this. Well, check out this playlist. Like the whole playlist is very much in his kind of world, you know. And I said, like, maybe when you're on the plane tomorrow coming over, why don't you listen through that playlist and see if anything jumps out at you as references for these tunes. You know, we've got 10 songs to mix. So yeah, in answer to your question, I do. What was the question again? Do I have a mixing reference playlist? I think it's incredibly good fun to do that, to have that workflow, you know, because I think very often when you record and mix yourself, and if ever, you know, these days, okay, let me start again. When you have a studio like this, which costs quite a lot of money, you know, to run and to book, you know, it's not, you know, it's an investment for people to record in a place like this, you know, not particularly this place, but a big studio requires a bit of investment. And because there isn't much money in the music industry anymore, on a kind of on any kind of grassroots level, generally there isn't like loads of time to spend experimenting as much as you would like. So it's often a kind of it often happens, I would say, more that there is a lot of creativity that happens in the mixing stage as well, which is often cheaper. And you know, you can, as long as it's well recorded in the first place, you can kind of do whatever you want later on, you know, and it'll work. It gives you lots of options. I don't always like working like that. I like to try and mix as I go, but like this album that we're going to do this week, it's the kind of thing where it feels like it's got to a point where, like, okay, great, it's all sounding very nice and expensive and kind of posh in a way, but maybe it needs like another kind of round of just fucking it up a bit, you know, and really being a bit more creative with the mixing and like filtering some stuff and like drowning some stuff in reverb and, like, you know, just we need to go a bit more extreme, you know. And so especially for that kind of job where, you know, you're trying to sort of like play the mix a little bit, then having a playlist is great. You know, okay, listen to this song, that drum sound, that's really vibey, let's try and make that drum sound happen on this tune, and then let's just see how that works, you know. And so I'm looking forward to this week, and I'm hoping to be able to film some of this process of us mixing for next week's video, among other things that I'm going to do if I have time. Okay, let's see now. Ragged Rex been building his for 10 years. Fuck. Wow. Yeah. Good on you, man. I hope you've made some music during those 10 years at some point. Idan Mazur, how would you approach contracts with artists when the process is made of participating in the creation of the song, playing a few instruments on their songs, coming up with parts that are your own? Yeah, well, I think that really kind of depends on the project. I mean, if you're producing, if you're, you know, if you're down as the producer, then you should have a production contract. I've learned that the hard way as well. You should have a production contract, or at least have the conversation beforehand and have the contract shown so that it's agreed that the contract will be signed. Often it's not totally clear before you start what your role will end up being. But as far as production goes, then yeah, like there are pretty standard production contracts out there. As far as being a performer on the track, I mean, if you're a session player playing on someone else's song, then I mean, as long as the artist or label or whoever is in charge of releasing the recording, as long as they do their job and register you as a performer on that recording, then you will get royalties whenever it's played on the radio or used on a TV show or whatever it is. Um, yeah, I mean and obviously, and you should get paid for the session as well. I think that's basically how it works for session musicians. You get paid for the session, and then you get a performer's royalty. I mean, if you're writing a part which you could argue is, a kind of hook, then you can ask the artist if you can have a cut of the publishing. I think that's a pretty common thing as well, like, yeah, I mean, there's lots of songs like that where the main riff is kind of at least as important as, the vocal melody or whatever. So I think it's just generally a good idea to have these conversations before you start, just at least just to say, hey, look, I'm really up for doing this. Just like, can we just have a quick chat about, like, what my stake in this will be if I, with my contribution or whatever. I'm not so good at this stuff. Yeah, but yeah, hope that helps. Careful implying that metal isn't tasteful. You're in Sweden now. So, hey, come on, I didn't mean that metal's not tasteful. Okay, tasteful was I mean, I like metal, Damon, you know that. But yeah, good point. No, I mean, but it's different living above a studio that is recording metal all day than living above a studio that's recording jazz all day. Or maybe jazz would get annoying as well. Who knows? Anyway, the point about my neighbor in Berlin, he was such a lovely guy that he just went out and bought some noise cancelling headphones, and problem solved. Peter says, hello and happy new year. Electronic service engineer here. Did you get the mail I sent through your Idea Farm web? I don't have Insta. Okay, keep it for future, or you need some. Okay, Peter. Hi. No, I didn't, but I will look for it. Okay. Okay, that's great. I remember your message. Yeah. You sent it through the website. Okay. I will. Did you send it just now? Maybe. Is that what you mean? No. Did I get it? Let's see. No. No, I don't think I did. Maybe could you try sending it again? Just to send it to admin. Yeah, just admin@ideafarm.se, and then I'll get it. I'll write that in the chat. Or actually, you just send it to Robbie. You can send it there. Whoops, there's a space in there that shouldn't be there. Anyway, you get the idea. Just get rid of that space after Robbie. Okay, let's see now. Ragged Wreck is in Ireland. Cool. Valentin, hey, will we see some footage from the live acts from the Christmas party? Yeah, maybe. There was, it was, yeah, I didn't do too much filming. it was actually a totally insane day because we had so much stuff to get ready. We had to basically wire up all the lighting in the kitchen. uh, there was so much. We started at 7 a.m. and by kind of 10 p.m. when I was playing bass with Anders, we had 70 people come, and it was just one of those days where we stayed up till 3 or something, and yeah, it was almost a 24-hour day, and a bit of a whirlwind. But yeah, okay, I'll see if I can dig somehow. I'll ask around because someone would have been filming it, and I'll send it to you, Valentin. MTC, the studio build series has been exceptionally informative. Thanks for sharing the journey. Would you consider doing a video on the costs involved in building the place? A bit too personal. No, it's not. It's yeah, I have thought about this video a lot. It would be a very, it would take me a long quite a long time to put together because our journey to here begins in London with a kind of wrecked apartment, which I kind of inherited from my previous stepdad who died. Uh, it was yeah, we spent 5 years renovating an apartment in Woolwich in southeast London, which we then rented out when we moved to Berlin, and we then sold that in order to fund this thing, along with some savings and along with some help from family. We're almost out of money now, like we're really down to the last little chunk. But yeah, at some point I will explain exactly a bit more detail about the journey, but it really has been yeah, taking kind of wrecked places, doing them up, and the kind of insanity of London house prices, I guess, which has, basically you know, it's not an exact swap, but it's quite close to being trading an apartment in a very shit part of London for this whole thing. That, I mean, yeah, that's kind of like 80% of the truth, I would say, which I think is a pretty good deal. But this has been way more expensive than I thought it would be. COVID totally just rewrote all of the rules and the prices for everything, and yeah, like and because we're in Sweden, I did not expect it to be as expensive as it turned out to be. So yeah, I think we've done pretty well, all things considered. But yeah, I will talk about this properly on a video at some point. Right. MTC costs. Olaf, will you hold courses and other creative expressions there? I've heard you mention ceramics, screen printing, woodshop, metal. What are the plans for the workshops publicly? Well, yeah, this is something we've been talking about quite a lot recently between ourselves. The original plan was that we would have it kind of like a co-working space, where people would rent desk space like by the month, base themselves here. I'm kind of still up for that approach. I don't know exactly who we would find around here, but I think something, I think another, well, okay, I should say, before I continue down that path, recently we've been talking to some people who have had other ideas about how with a place like this where you have so many different areas which can be used for various endeavors, this could actually be a really amazing place for kind of installations of some description, like get funding to invite an artist to come over for a month and make some art here at the same time as putting on some concerts and some sort of like pop-up restaurant thing. And it's like some sort of like festival type situation which I'd always thought about as well, but recently I've been kind of giving it a bit more kind of logistical thought. If we have lots of people here who are paying rent to base themselves here and are expecting a certain amount of access to certain things, and then we want to be able to invite an artist to come here, or invite a group of artists, or a company of artists, or a creative company of some description to come here and set something up for a couple of weeks or something. We have to be careful that that doesn't kind of tread on the toes of a co-working space type setup. So I'm kind of like now thinking that maybe the kind of compromise situation is that we will just find a few people local to here, local enough to here, that want to be involved, want to kind of, you know, kind of base themselves here, but in a pretty sort of flexible, what in a kind of flexible capacity. So they understand that, you know, sometimes something will be happening which will mean that they can't make noise in the evening. I don't know. We've just got to see what happens. Yeah, it also just it gets complicated with things like access. You know, if you have a co-working space, then everyone needs a key, and like, can they come here whenever they want, 24 hours a day? It starts to get a bit complicated, but I think there's going to be some kind of like beautiful little compromise solution, which will mean that we can do some really interesting things here: events and installations, exhibitions, seminars, workshops, those kind of things. Like, I mean, your question was really about workshops and courses and stuff, and that is absolutely one of the things that excites me more than anything, is to to use like my friend Marcus, who maybe you saw a few months ago coming to service the pianos. You know, like he is like high end, like high end harpsichord builder, wood guy, like just really high end, and he's totally up for coming to do a workshop here. You know, and that could be a great like weekend thing. Come over, you know, maybe we have like 5 spaces on the course or something. Just come and spend a weekend with Marcus, like nerding out about wood and doing some stuff in the workshop. Totally, that would be incredible to do that kind of thing. And maybe then we combine it with him doing like a seminar, or some sort of presentation, or we have some sort of demonstration of something. I don't know, like, if you have any ideas, then let us know, because yeah, that's the whole point of this. Ideas, you know. We'll see. I haven't given it as much thought as I have been able to, because most of my energy so far has gone into like, how the fuck do we build this thing for as little money as possible, and and it still work, you know. Because, I mean, maybe you saw a couple of weeks ago I did the video of sort of a bit like before and after kind of thing. We haven't really done that much to these spaces, you know, in terms of like dramatically remodeling. You know, I think this this studio, this control room bit, which basically divides this massive barn in half. This is the only kind of new structure that we've built in terms of the layout in this place. The rest of the spaces are basically just big barns which have been insulated and made to look pretty inside. So the restaurant is just a big open room. We can do anything we want in there. We can do a workshop in there, or whatever the hell, like concert. You know, that's sort of the point. We deliberately, and also out of necessity, out of financial necessity, did as little as we could to each barn to allow them to be as open as possible, so that we can do whatever we want. Another very long answer to a very short question. Right. There was some form in the shop. Oh, that was Peter. Okay. Right. Cool. Thank you, Gary. Uh, Ah, Gary Stockton. Did you run or take over Trevor Horn's studio in London? Yeah, actually, Psalm East. Uh, we had it was me and a few friends. Uh, the first studio that I built, which is the one that was in the Sound on Sound article, I sold that to somebody. That's a very long story. I mean, this is at some point. At some point, I would love to make more videos just telling stories about how I got to this point in my life, because that's all a very funny story. But it's too long for now. But yeah, I sold the studio that I built out of rubbish, which, I mean, just that sentence kind of said it all. And me and a few friends, we took over Trevor Horn's old studio, Psalm East, at the bottom of Brick Lane, which we at the time all we heard was kind of rumors about like the history of that place, and we found graffiti and stuff in there which sort of suggested like its history and things. And only after we took it over, we started kind of finding out more and more. And even after we left, once the internet kind of really took off a bit more, I started finding out even more about it. Like apparently Bohemian Rhapsody was mixed in there, I think. And yeah, just like just Madonna recorded in there, The Clash recorded in there. In fact, the manager of The Clash, Bernie Rhodes, he used to come down and just hang out there. Once he found out we were kind of back up and running again, he used to come and hang out, and I would go out drinking with him. And the whole thing was just like, wow, we've just sort of stepped into this kind of little piece of history. And it was an amazing place. It was just it was totally insane. It was like directly underneath like the greasiest Greasy Spoon cafe in London. A guy who just basically at the end of every shift would just pour all of the bacon fat into the drains, uh, which in the end completely blocked all of the sewage system in our entire building. And I arrived at the studio to grab a guitar because I had a radio show to go and do, and everyone was standing outside the studio on the street looking really kind of like freaked out. And I was like, what's happened? What's going on? And they had the Dynarod guys had come and they had tried to like rod out the drains, and they'd found this like massive like iceberg of bacon fat like filling the entire sewage system. But they pierced this thing, and it had kind of released this, all the pressure had released, and it had basically kind of backwashed into our studio through the floor. There was a manhole cover in one of the rooms, and it had just filled the studio with like 2 inches of sewage, which was just like, it's just the most insane thing ever. And but I had to go in there and retrieve my guitar to get to the radio show. Anyway, that's just an example of like one of the shenanigans that we got up to. But yeah, at some point, yes, I'll talk more about that. But yeah, that was another great privilege to take over that place, even if it was very short lived. We only had it for a few years. It was very complicated. We were subletting it from someone who turned out to be a bit of a dick. That studio then moved to Dean Street. Maybe you're familiar with Dean Street Studios in Soho. That studio then moved to Dean Street Studios, which is obviously a much bigger thing, and is still going very strong. And yeah, it's a great place. So if you're in Soho and you want to record, then check out Dean Street Studios. It's an amazing place. Okay. 80% sounds like one hell of a good deal to me. Looking forward to learning about the journey when you get to it. Thanks. Ragged, the Live Aid single. Yeah, wasn't that Psalm West? Can't have been. Like, no, I mean, yeah, that studio, that Trevor Horn place, it was pretty tiny. The live room was maybe, I don't know, 30 square meters, very low ceiling. It had a big carved into one of the walls was this kind of like like a sort of frieze, like a sort of carved mural of a couple of men like involved in some kind of sexual uh, act position. I guess it was like an 80s, some sort of like homoerotic 80s inspiration. Yeah, I don't know. It was a bit strange. Anyway, um, let's see. Yeah, Psalm West, Gary Stockton. Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, that makes much more sense. That's still going. That's a big studio. Uh, let's see. Uh, oh, she invented a fat recycling product. She invented after reading about London's fatbergs. Yeah, yeah. It's wild. Um, yeah, the best the best fatberg I ever heard about was back last year. Last year in January, we actually had we had somebody under house arrest in our guest house for 2 months. Um, to cut a long story short, I won't name his name, but he was arrested. He's an urban explorer, and he was arrested breaking into a submarine base in Stockholm 6 years ago, and it took 5 years of court cases and uh, I mean, he's an amazing guy. He's someone that hopefully will come here and do a seminar or more at some point. Like total absolute legend. And so he was here for 2 months, serving his sentence of 2 months house arrest in Sweden, and he was telling us all about his adventures, urban exploring around the world. And one of which is relevant to this conversation is he was in Rome at some point when they had apparently discovered the world's oldest sewer, uh, which was apparently still in operation under Rome, and apparently kind of at some point in its path it opens up into a huge kind of underground chamber, and him and his mates wanted to go and find this underground chamber, and so they took some like rubber dinghies, went down through a manhole somewhere in Rome with their dinghies, and then started sailing along a river of sewage underneath Rome, looking for this sewer. Oh well, I think they found the sewer. They found this really old sewer and started sailing down it to try and well, not sailing. Obviously, there's no wind. Maybe paddling down it. I don't know how they propelled themselves, um, but they were trying to find this huge room. But he said at some point they came confronted with this, like literally like a wall of grease, which was kind of blocking, like I guess like the sewage was running underneath the grease, and they basically had to try. They started trying to kind of like like tunnel their way through this grease while staying in these dinghies. I think maybe with their feet or something. He said that they got quite far into this wall of grease, and at some point it just felt like A, probably quite dangerous, and B, like just what the hell are we doing here? And so they turned back. But yeah, he's quite a guy, like a proper adventurer. So yeah, maybe at some point I can get him on this channel talking about his adventures. That would be amazing. Okay, Papa Bear Outdoor Adventures. It's so exciting to follow your journey. You and your friends are so dedicated and passionate. Really hope there is a chance to visit you in the future and say hello. Yes, please come. Any of you, please come and say hello. Book some studio time so we can get this mixing desk. Come and eat in our restaurant when that's open, or just come and hang out, and I'll happily show you around. Okay, I've been on here for an hour and nearly an hour and 40 minutes. I'm thinking I might hit the sack pretty soon so that I can get up early tomorrow. My session starts at about 11 or 12. He's arriving in the morning. So I will try tomorrow morning to go and pick up some more materials for some stuff we're doing in the water room. We're going to do the last little bit of actual construction in the next couple of weeks. Maybe we might even get the sauna underway. That's kind of the dream. Every year we've said it, we should build the sauna. That could be another little project. Okay. I will say goodbye. Mr. Steve Took, you're welcome. Gary, thanks for your kind words. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Maybe I'll do another one of these at some point when I have nothing else to put on the video, or maybe I'll just do it because it's fun to do it. Let me know what you think. All right. Lots of love, everybody. Happy New Year, and I will see you next week. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Join our channel membership if you're feeling generous. But yeah, I will see you next week, and look after each other. And goodbye. How do I stop this thing?